Hey y'all, Zelda here. I am here for a week ahead tarot reading. I'm going to show you three different piles, three different crystal skulls, and you're going to pick the one that speaks to you most. And then you will find the timestamp in the description for this video, and you'll skip ahead to the reading for the skull that you chose. Before we look at the skulls, I just want to tell you quick which decks that I'm going to be using. Each pile is going to be 3 cards, one from 3 different decks. I let the beings that I work with pick out a deck, so that's why they're 3 and 3 and, all that good stuff. So I usually do, and this time is no different, 1 tarot deck and 2 oracle decks. The tarot deck that we're going to be using this week is the Luminous Void Tarot deck. And then the 2 oracle decks, one is the Mythical Cats Oracle deck, a pretty new one for me, and then the other is the Poesis Oracle deck, which is one of my faves. So those are the 3 different decks. Let's take a look at the skulls. So pile number 1, this is Cosmona. She is a Lemurian Sirius quartz carved by Leandro de Souza. So if you are resonating with Cosmona, this is pile number 1. Pile number 2 is this red jasper skull. His name is Selah. And I believe that he is carved by Raven Youngman, but I am not 100% sure. So if Selah is resonating with you, that is pile number 2. Pile number 3 is this Himalayan quartz magical child skull. Master carved by Subhash Meena. And his name is Bear. Humbert. But his nickname is Bear. B-E-H-R. So that is Humbert, and that is pile number 3. So now you can either stay. I'll do a little tune in where I just call in guides and sit for a moment. If that is something you're interested in, you can stick around and then jump after. If that is not your jam, no worries. You can hop ahead to the reading of your choice. If you are going to stay to tune in, I'm using the Golden Sphinx spray, but if you want to spritz something or light some incense or open a window, light a candle, or just take some deep breaths, call upon guides, ancestors, spirit teams, and lineages, my own and each and every person watching this, asking that all beneficent beings working in our favor be present so that we may hear the messages that are meant for us, so that each person can utilize their sacred power of discernment to know which messages are meant for them and which they can leave behind. Asking that our mind be open, humble, and receptive to all of the beautiful lessons and magic headed our way. Okay, let's get started with pile number 1. You chose Cosmona. Cosmona has a very, she's like not someone who's going to like coddle you as a teacher. She's like a little more reserved as a teacher and like wants to let people figure it out themselves. She does have connection to the Sirius system and the Syrian people. Okay. So let's start with the magical cats. This is Asteria of the Stars. The universe is vast and full of messages for you. Look to the stars and to your dreams for what you need to know at this time. The Poesis Oracle deck card is Desire. And the Luminous Void Tarot deck card is Judgment. So it feels like there's some invitation to be curious and to investigate what of your desires, and this is kind of a literal interpretation in some ways, but it feels really important, especially with this card for this spread for some reason, which is that when I see this image, I think of, desires and evolution, but I also think of almost like which of our desires has been othered or made wrong, like taboo desires. This feels related to like shadow parts of self that have been wronged or made not okay. And with the Judgment, it feels like an invitation. The Judgment is the second to last card in the Major Arcana, so right before the World card. And it feels like this kind of like holographic or expansive understanding of a situation, this kind of like ability to hold both and be able to like fit all of the pieces together in a way that isn't reductionist. And so with this, it kind of feels like an invitation to not close the door on something that you want, especially for some reason. This feels like, is there something that you want that is like impractical or that you don't really know what the purpose of it is? There are many of our wants and desires that can be discounted by capitalism, by the systems that we live in. Many things, I even think of things that are like called like cringe or like, like things that we might like that we feel embarrassed about, right? And so this is something that like I just want to encourage to like take a look at like which of your desires, which of your wants are kind of like under the surface or have been repressed a little bit, and see if you can give some space to like air those out a little bit, whether that is, sometimes these are things like sexual desires. Sometimes these are things like desires for what to do with our free time. Sometimes these are like something you've always wanted to do but didn't make sense, or you felt like you weren't good at it. Sometimes this is like, it is very, I believe, not like revolutionary as in like that's all we need to change the world. No, but like it is very like counter capitalist or something to do something that the only benefit is just like enjoying, like doing something that you're not good at, doing something that doesn't make you money, doing something that doesn't look good to others. This is like, what do you love to do even though you're bad at it? What maybe do you want to learn how to do? And just really getting in touch with like those desires feels like it is, it opens us up to actually evolve and become more of ourselves and to welcome more of ourselves in. I see it in this too. This kind of like cyclical, like being in relationship with cyclical parts of ourselves. Like, I see like the baby and the being there, and then this being. And the thing that comes to mind is like the maiden, the mother, and the crone, which is these kind of like triple moon symbolic energy of like almost like phases of development. And we can be in these different phases of development throughout our life at the same time, like in different areas of our life. And so this also feels like inviting in, like maybe one way to get in touch with this is even to get in touch with things that you loved when you were a child or things that you loved when you were younger. This also feels like an invitation that like at any time we can kind of like give ourselves that like nurturing parent, like inner parent or inner caregiver that we need. And like calling upon these kind of like wiser parts of self can also be really empowering and really important in doing this work. This also says like look to the stars and to your dreams for what you need to know at this time. And I see that sometimes the different parts of ourself or our experience of the universe that I believe is interconnected with ourself. This isn't to like lay claim to things in the universe. We can respect that we are both, and it's like a both and, right? That we can like encourage the dissolution of the binary in that way of self and others by acknowledging that it's not either we are everything or we are distinct, but that we are actually both of those things. And so exploring symbols and the way that we make meaning in the world around us feels like one way that we can kind of invite or like reclaim some agency of like becoming a empowered narrator of our own life story and really kind of taking agency over that. That doesn't mean that this isn't about bypassing the challenging parts of life. Honestly, there aren't really very many good books that don't have like challenges or shortcomings in them, right? Like that the character doesn't go through an arc of challenge or development or growth. But that also there's this invitation to like not let that stop you almost, but like not let that disempower you from kind of like claiming that agency. Let's see if Cosmona has any specific messages for us. Okay, so I'm seeing an image of someone with their eyes closed and this like window opening, like almost like the whole top half of their face, like opening up and having there be kind of like all of this like universe behind it. And I saw this kind of like figure stepping out of there. And so it feels a little like when we acknowledge this interconnectedness to something that is so much bigger than we can comprehend, we also can become a little more intentional around doing things like meditation practice or practicing things like astral projection or lucid dreaming. Like these are things that feel like we are in this kind of like we're at least in the northern hemisphere, right? We're kind of turning towards like shorter days, cooler, turning inwards. This feels like, you know, the veil is thinned. This is a time of dark and being more connected to spirit. And it's also a time where we maybe have more access to this kind of like self beyond the self, so to speak. And so this is like an encouragement as you like gather agency to like see what kind or forms of like the mystical or the magical or the collective unconscious exploration that you want to tap into and connect to. And that this feels like a time where if that is a desire of yours, that there's going to be maybe a little bit more support for you in your surroundings and even more support for you. Like I saw these kind of like beings, like supportive beings around. And Cosmona feels very much like her energy feels very much like you have to put in the effort, and then your guides, especially guides like Cosmona, are going to meet you there, right? And so how do you get clear with your desires? Because spirit is not going to like drop out like a buffet of magical experiences for you. I mean, maybe there is, and you might not even be able to appreciate that if you're not in the right place. So it does feel like this kind of invitation to put in the energy and to dream with intention and to pay attention to your dreams and hold them with like a certain kind of reverence. Cosmona is also saying that your experience of things beyond your human self, like this lifetime, beyond this lifetime experience, your experience of things beyond that are not meant to bypass the experience that you're having right now. They're meant to supplement. They're meant to, like, your life right now is not like an accident. It's a continuation. You are in your evolution, right? Things that you have that are maybe memories of the past or memories of different parts of space, like you evolved to get to the place that you are at now. And so there also feels like there's a certain reverence for that, like a respectfulness for that part of your experience that feels important. Okay, thank you, Cosmona, and thank you all for being here, Group 1. As always, I love doing these with you each week, and I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your week and that it's working for you to receive these on Monday instead of Sunday moving forward. I did post a video last week about skull readings and what those are, so let me know what you thought of that if you're interested, and let me know if you have any ideas of things that you'd like kind of introductory wise in the future. Otherwise, I will see you next week for the week ahead tarot reading. Up next, we have Group 2. Group 2, you chose Selah. Selah has participated in these before, is an earth elemental, really big, mountainous. So let's start with the tarot card. The tarot card this week is the Queen of Cups. The Poesis Oracle deck is Compassion. And your card, the Mystic Cat, is Revenge, the Deadly. It says, you may be dismissing something or someone that will come back at you with a vengeance. This tiny thing could prove dangerous, so be careful. Revenge sounds a lot like revenge. Okay, let's see. I relate and connect to this. Okay. So the message that is coming through for this, which I wanted to check in for a second, because this card is particularly with the idea of like being careful. Not that I'm saying there's never a good time to be careful. It's like if we're gonna like run out onto like a frozen lake, we want to like proceed with caution because we could get sucked into the lake or the ice could break, you know? And, you know, if we're going forward and doing something challenging, but I also don't want to ever provide like fear-based feedback and that seems to be a very insistent part of my guides and of my supports is, and of the teachers that I have studied with, is this desire to kind of move away from like a condemning or a fear-based practice. And so one of the things that feels important for this is like remembering that the way that we act now has consequences, both good and bad, right? Like And we don't even have to judge it as good or bad, actually. The way that we behave now has consequences. It affects the outcome in the future. And that we actually do have a sense of control over our circumstances in a way, because we get to be in charge of like our own actions and how we show up in our own energy. And so this very much feels like, what are you planting seeds for in your actions? What are you, how are you behaving? How are you allowing your emotions, your heart, your emotional sovereignty or evolution to guide and be a compass for you? And this feels like a really big encouragement that, like, if you act and behave in a way that is either fear-based or is based in like wanting to get the most out of a situation, right? Or wanting to benefit in some way, and that it puts someone else at risk, that sets you up potentially later for that person to come back and do something about that, right? And that there's some invitation around, like, if you allow someone to move past your boundaries again and again and again, and you make excuses for that, then you potentially set up your boundaries to be less firm or less protective for you in the future in that area. If you choose to behave in a way that is open to everything, that is fully open and receptive and does not discern or create any sort of protective barrier for you, that is inviting everything into your sphere, including things that seek openness so that they can take and take and take. So this feels just like a really big message around discernment. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel predictive, and partly that's like, I'm not doing an individual reading, so I can't predict that everyone who resonated with this is going to have the same experience. Maybe you are resonating with feeling like someone's got it. Oh, there's like some burbling coming from the sink in the background. Maybe there is some resonance for you in feeling like that maybe you just dismissed something that you have like a feeling or an inkling about, that it's not the right thing for you at this time, that you should have done something different. If that's the message for you, great. But that is not the overall message that I'm receiving for this. And part of that is like, in this situation, whatever situations that you're in, maybe a decision-making circumstance of some kind, or in relationship to other, it feels like this invitation is really like letting compassion be a compass for you, allowing yourself to be guided by your connection to others and your connection to yourself. The Queen of Cups really feels like it is of the double elemental, it is water and water. So it feels like in the Aliman Tarot handbook, they wrote, like, this card may as well be wet. And like, I always think of that as like, there's this really like strength of water and like pinnacle of water or something in how fluid water is, but also in how firm and forceful and strong water is, which is interesting, especially with the other elemental that we have as the guide, which is Selah. So let's check in and see what Selah has specifically around this. So I feel Selah like rooting me, like almost as if roots were like growing around my feet and ankles and like anchoring me there. And he said, the only solid ground that you have to stand on is the ground of your own integrity. And that you decide with your actions moving forward how firm and how stable your footing is going to be, that you build on things one step at a time. And that by creating and by returning to your own sense of self and the way that you hold dignity for others, that this is creating the stability of your foundation and will allow your foundation to build upon itself. he's showing this like small growth of mountains every year, this like patient formation and growth, and this sense of like sturdiness, like the base that is like solid. This feels like a foundation. Sorry for the long pause. I'm trying to filter through the images. Selah is sharing that it feels like the elements or the foundation, they can weather the elements. So the foundation can weather the different elements. And I was kind of looking at this card and wondering how this fits in. And there's some aspect of like, if you proceed forward with this care, with this attention, with this integrity and groundedness, that you can weather the elements of other people having feelings about what you're doing. You can weather other people like trying to be dangerous, right? Like that you don't need to act out of fear to like buffer yourself, because then you would also create a less stable foundation. Also feels like an invitation to like look at this smile, this like self-satisfied smile in some way of like not needing approval of others for that foundation to still be solid. Like someone coming along and being like, oh, that mountain doesn't look solid to me, does not change the solidity of a mountain's foundation. That is totally irrelevant, right? So that feels like part of the invitation too, is like continually returning that compass to your kind of inner self and inner understanding and inner authority. As usual, Selah could keep going, but we're going to pause here because we're kind of at the end of the time for pile number 2. Thank you so much, Selah. And thank you all for being here. I'm going to take a moment to just like, I wonder if I can escape this light. Not really. So we're just going to be here for a minute. Thank you so much for watching this week. I hope that you are taking good care of yourself, and I always appreciate spending this time with you. If you would like, I did release a video on like skull readings and what they are and whether they're important or why you might want or need one or not want one. So if you like, you can check that out. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you back here next Monday for the week ahead. Thanks, y'all. Okay, group number 3. I'm trying to like outrun some of the lighting, but I could just close it. So let's do that. Okay, I'm back. Let's adjust that. It's a little darker, but maybe better than stripes of invisibility throughout the body. Welcome, group number 3. You chose Humbert, bear, who is a bear spirit, who is connected to the kind of parts of most connected to spirit, like the ancestors and also the portal of being born. Let's see what cards Humbert chose for us. Okay, so the tarot card is the Star. The Poesis Oracle card is Connect. And the Mythical Cats deck is Athena. It says the Tactician. It says, a time for careful planning has come. Don't be afraid to ask for help with formulating a plan of action. Okay. Let's see what messages are coming through with these cards. So Humbert is saying that it is really important in like not asking for help to remember that in the Odyssey, Athena is a benefactor, a guide that that helps that Athena like helps Odysseus out of like challenging or sticky situations, that there's a beneficent relationship between the two of them in their service for each other, or like a blessing of some kind. This is interesting because with this kind of like connect, I'm really feeling this sense of there being an opportunity to connect with some of your beneficent guides, spirits, beings that are like more present right now with you. That doesn't mean that this is a time for like figuring out exactly what comes next, especially with the star. The star has this kind of timeless quality or timeless relationship to time, which I know is kind of confusing to speak about it that way. Lindsay Mack talks about this being the Mary Poppins of the tarot deck, where it like shows up for as long as it's needed when it's needed, and then like does all this work, and then one day it's like it's ready to go and it's just gone, right? And so that energy of like the dilation of time and like being in the healing process does feel like it discourages this like step-by-step roadmap, or careful planning that is talked about in this. But we can be attentive and full of care for our experience and not have to like micromanage each step. And this is kind of what feels like connecting with like the guides or the benefactors or the supportive spiritual teachers. I heard both teachers and creatures, which is interesting. So like I'm curious about folks who are connected to like animal spirits or other non-human guides, that there can be this kind of like connection that is healing in nature, that can also allow you to connect and nurture a part of yourself even. This also feels like when I see these two together, I'm seeing like like a constellation almost, where like all of these different like spots create this kind of like, they're kind of random, and then like suddenly the dots are connected and you're like, oh yeah, I can see a picture there. But actually, like, still when I look at the stars, one of the things I thought sometimes when I was like learning some of the constellations is like, how did they get this image from here, right? Like where did that image come from? Because that is not like, maybe I see actually a different image that I would connect more. But there are some ways in which the symbolism feels important, right? And that like there is that effect of like, oh, maybe that's not what my mind would associate, but I'm receiving some support and some encouragement, some education even, to allow me to like be guided towards where I need to go. That feels like that connection. It also feels very like, to me, like this is not, I mean, it could be us touching our own, but it's also like, it's okay that you don't have to connect each dot on your own. Let's see what Humbert has to share. So he's showing me like a bear seeking out like food and almost like doing the work of preparation, it seems like, for the cold or for the night, where there's like some of the preparation sometimes that we do is actually just like taking really good care of ourselves. And so there also feels like this encouragement of like, if there is a challenging time or you're in a challenging point in your healing process, that asking for help and figuring out how to like get organized around like filling up your reserves and your fuel, that feels really important right now. Like this focus, like, and that careful planning can be like, it's not overly cautious to try to take vital medication every day, right? Or to try and eat regularly. It's something we have to do so consistently, but like there's a care. And sometimes those things are referred to as care tasks. Things like cleaning, taking care of the body, things that are involved in caring for the self and other. And although that work is kind of devalued, that also feels like a big piece around like, do you need some supports around care tasks? Is that something like a guide could support you with, or even like a friend, right? Sometimes we need a friend to body double with us so we can sign up for health insurance, or a friend to help us make challenging phone calls, or help us eat a meal with us once a week so that we can make sure we're getting something nurturing and nourishing into our system. So this also feels like not forgetting the guides and the blessed spiritual beings that are our like companions in this life, are our active community, that like this feels like community and mutual aid type of related in that kind of connectedness, and that kind of expansive network of healing that is that kind of like network, like that blanket or something that comes up in this blanket of stars, or in the star card. There also feels like some, like, especially with time, some like observance of like, how do you relate to like rituals of healing and rituals of grief and rituals of practice around like your culture, your, this could be how you construct meaning and how you like create culture in your life, but I'm even thinking like ancestry related, and that's what it's feeling connected to, is like, how did your ancestors and like even your more recent like grandparents, things like that, celebrate the passage of time, and how was that a support and a preparation and an encouragement to be present with like these different rhythms, and like also how did that form like almost like nodes of connection, or like little landing pads of connection, and figuring out how to kind of like build that into your own life, and structure that into your own system in a different way. Okay. I think that those are your messages for this week, group 3. Thank you so much. It is always a joy to spend a little bit of time with you, and I appreciate all of you, especially when you, not especially, I mean, all of you, no exceptions. And I especially love getting to read your comments and seeing people who are, coming to these repeatedly and how that's unfolding, or even like checking in with a guide more than once. It just really kind of warms my heart to get to share this part of my own practice with you all. So I look forward to seeing you next week for the week ahead. Just as a reminder, they are coming out on Mondays now. So, okay. Bye, y'all.